Good evening. President Trump has just announced that he is opening up a new office, something which he's calling the office of the former president, which leaves a lot of people wondering what he's actually planning to do. Meanwhile, over in Congress, 45 senators have voted against holding an impeachment trial because they believe that impeaching President Trump after he's left office is unconstitutional. Now, over at the southern border, a federal judge has ruled in favor of Texas, meaning that, at least for the next 2 weeks, deportations can resume. And lastly, we here at the Epoch Times have received leaked internal government documents which reveal that China's military is growing its fleet of drones in order to spy on and to compete with the United States of America. Let's go through these stories together. This is your daily Facts Matter update, and I'm your host, Roman, from the Epoch Times. Now let's start today's discussion by talking about the new office that was created by President Trump. So 3 days ago, President Trump announced that he has officially opened something called the Office of the Former President. Now, what's that all about? Well, in the press release, here's what he had to say. Today, the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, formally opened the Office of the Former President. The office will be responsible for managing President Trump's correspondence, public statements, appearances, and official activities to advance the interests of the United States and to carry on the agenda of the Trump administration through advocacy, organizing, and public activism. President Trump will always and forever be a champion for the American people. So this announcement answered a very pressing question that a lot of people had once Trump actually left office, which is whether he would stay engaged in national politics. And it looks like he will. In fact, since leaving the White House, President Trump has made 2 political moves, other than, of course, opening this new office. One was to endorse Kelly Ward, who was then reelected as the Arizona Republican Party chairwoman. And then secondly, he endorsed Sarah Huckabee Sanders in her campaign for governor of Arkansas. Now, there was something that Sarah Sanders said in her campaign announcement that I believe really elucidates what's happening right now in American politics. She said, "Everything we love about America is at stake. With the radical left now in control of Washington, your governor is your last line of defense. In fact, your governor must be on the front line." So the reason that I bring up that quote is because recently I heard some political commentary and some analysis on what's happening in America right now, which said that since the Republicans have lost control of both the White House as well as Congress at the federal level, they now have to focus on the state and local levels in order to serve as a check to the Democratic agenda, which seems to be what is actually happening right now. For instance, President Trump has formed this new office. He endorsed the Arizona chairwoman, who later won re-election. Sarah Sanders is running for governor of Arkansas. Mike Lindell, who is the founder of MyPillow, he said that he might run for governor of Minnesota, and he also said that if he did run for governor, he was promised an endorsement by President Trump. And of course, down in Texas, the governor there, as well as the attorney general, they've said that they will serve as a check to the Biden administration. In fact, the Texas governor wrote on Twitter that President Biden is trying to halt deportations of illegal aliens who already have a final order of removal from the U.S. This abandons the obligation to enforce federal immigration laws. Texas is fighting this attempt to grant blanket amnesty. And these are not just words, because as we discussed in an earlier episode, Texas did file a lawsuit against the Biden administration, arguing that their 100-day freeze order on deportations was illegal and dangerous. And by the way, since that earlier episode, a federal judge has temporarily blocked President Biden's executive order, meaning that deportations will once again resume. Ken Paxton, who is Texas's attorney general, he said this on Twitter. Texas is the first state in the nation to bring a lawsuit against the Biden administration, and we won. Within 6 days of Biden's inauguration, Texas has halted his illegal deportation freeze. This was a seditious left-wing insurrection, and my team and I stopped it. Now, to be specific though, this temporary restraining order does block Joe Biden's policy, but only for 14 days. We'll have to see how this case actually plays out in court in order to see what happens over the long term in terms of deportations. However, one very important thing to mention is that this attempt to freeze deportations was not the only immigration-related action by the Biden administration. In fact, since taking office, Joe Biden has been moving pretty quickly to dismantle the border security measures that were implemented by President Trump. In fact, on day one, basically on the very first day of his administration, they've either signed executive orders or issued memos to do 6 important things. Let's go through them together. First of all, they temporarily suspended deportations of illegal aliens, which we already discussed. Second of all, they got rid of the travel ban, which was instituted by President Trump, which banned travel from terrorism-prone countries, mostly from the Middle East or from Africa. And now they can come here again. Thirdly, he stopped the construction of the border wall. Fourthly, Joe Biden has stopped adding people to the Remain in Mexico program. That was the program wherein people who came here from Central America had to stay in Mexico as they await their asylum claims. Fifthly, Joe Biden has preserved and fortified the DACA program. And lastly, sixth of all, the Biden administration has sent over to Congress a sweeping immigration package, which includes amnesty for millions of illegal immigrants. And that was all on the very first day. And in fact, since then, since the first day in office, Joe Biden has also committed $4 billion in assistance to El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. That was according to the Mexico president. And secondly, he signed an executive order to include illegal aliens in the census count. So one question that you might be asking yourself is this: what is the theoretical underpinning guiding this new administration when it comes to immigration? Well, according to the White House press secretary, she put it this way: immigration, we consider, is part of racial equity, which is a broad issue, but that's how the president has spoken about that crisis over the past several months. So according to her, it's a question of racial equity. However, to give you another perspective on the matter, we interviewed Trevor Loudon, who is an expert on communist subversion, and he cited one study which found that illegal immigrants tend to overwhelmingly favor Democrats by about a factor of 80%. Compare that to 20% who favor Republicans. And then he went on to say that giving broad amnesty to illegal immigrants in the U.S. would give the Democrats between 10 and 24 million new voters. That will make them the permanent governing party of this country. Now, if you'd like to read more about what's happening at the border or about this new office of the former president, those links will be in the description box below this video for you to check out for yourself. And while you're down there looking for those links, take a quick moment to smash that like button. It goes without saying that videos like this, talking honestly about what's happening in this world right now, are routinely censored by big tech. However, when you smash that like button that's below this video, you are forcing the YouTube algorithm to share this video out to potentially thousands of more people, letting the truth be known far and wide. And now is a great time for me to tell you a little bit about the sponsor for today's episode, and I'll do so in the sound room. The sponsor of today's episode is AMAC, that's AMAC, and it stands for the Association of Mature American Citizens. Now, I'm about 20 years too young to join, but if you or somebody else in your family is 50 years old or over, you should consider joining AMAC. They're basically the conservative alternative to the AARP. And there are about three main benefits to joining. The first one is the money-saving benefit, because they offer discounts to their members on retail shops throughout the U.S., on restaurants, as well as on things like vitamins, insurance. I'll throw a link in the description box below for the full list of the discounts that they offer. It's pretty big. Then the second thing is that they send their magazine directly to your front door, which is really good. Even though I'm not a member, I have read their magazine, and it's filled with really good articles. And then the third thing, which people say is the most important to them, is that they fight for conservative values on Capitol Hill. Basically, they fight back against what they're referring to as the socialist storm that is brewing in America. And they fight for that in Washington, D.C., they say, every single day. So if you're interested in joining, it's not that expensive. It's only $16 per year. You can go on over to amac.us/factsmatter. That's amac.us/factsmatter. Or you can click on the link in the description box below. So again, AMAC, thank you so much for sponsoring our episode. And now, Roman in the studio, back to you. And now let's talk a little bit about the upcoming impeachment trial. 2 days ago, Joe Biden said that he feels an impeachment trial of President Trump has to happen. However, he acknowledged that President Trump will likely not be convicted. Basically, he will not be found guilty. And that's because of the high threshold that's required for conviction. Basically, 2/3 of the Senate would have to agree that President Trump is in fact guilty. And according to a recent vote which was conducted in the Senate, it was a vote on whether to have the trial at all. 45 Republican senators voted against holding an impeachment trial, saying that it would be unconstitutional to impeach President Trump after he left office. And so even though they ultimately lost that vote, meaning that the impeachment trial will actually go forward, it seems like enough senators think that the entire affair is unconstitutional, and therefore they are very unlikely to vote for a conviction of President Trump when the time actually comes. Basically, what will happen is that the trial will go forward, but will likely fail. If you'd like to read more about the upcoming impeachment trial, that link will be in the description box below this video for you to check out. And now let's talk about what's happening over in California. According to officials, California may have sent out as much as $11 billion in pandemic unemployment benefits to fraudsters. basically people who were defrauding the system in one way or another. According to a press release from California's Employment Development Department, since March of last year, they have processed almost 20 million claims and paid out almost $114 billion in unemployment benefits. However, they said that an estimated 10% of these payments, which amounts to about $11 billion, has been confirmed to be made out to fraudulent claims. They said that additionally, another 17% of these unemployment claims is under investigation after being flagged as being suspicious. And by the way, it's important to remember that when we're discussing fraud like this, fraud against the public sector, it's actually the theft of American tax dollars, your and mine tax dollars. So keep that in mind. Now, if that amount of fraud in California seems high to you, technically it's actually lower than the national average. According to ID.me, which is a security company which investigates and fights back against fraud, when you look nationally, when you look across this country, 35% of unemployment applications are fraudulent, which technically makes the 10 to 27% of fraud in California seem not too bad. Their CEO said that the fraud rate for new claims is at least 35% and over 10 times what we see at federal agencies. So obviously that is a lot of fraud that's eating into the pandemic unemployment relief. However, let's talk a little bit about the cause of this unemployment. California has been under very, very harsh restrictions since the pandemic, which included stay-at-home orders, curfews, as well as the closure of non-essential businesses. However, just 2 days ago, California's governor lifted these heavy restrictions. In a statement, he said that we are in a position projecting 4 weeks forward with a significant decline in the case rates, positivity rates. We are anticipating decline, still more decline in hospitalizations and more declines in intensive care use. And that's why we're lifting that stay-at-home order effective immediately today. Now, what's interesting to note here is that since Joe Biden took office, California is now the only state to have eased their lockdown measures. Over the last several days, the governors of New York, of Michigan, of Washington, as well as the mayor of Chicago also announced that they will be reopening their state or their city. But I would love to hear your thoughts on the matter. Please let me know what you think in the comment section below this video. Is the fact that these reopenings came right after the inauguration just a coincidence? Is it just a happenstance of timing? Or is it some sort of a Machiavellian type of politics going on in the background? Please let me know what you think. And now let's talk a little bit about what's happening over in China. According to a leaked internal government document from China's Ministry of National Defense, the Chinese Communist Party has been actively growing its fleet of drones to spy on and to compete with countries that they consider their adversaries, such as, of course, the United States. So this document comes from July of 2017, so it's about 3 or 4 years old, and it was given to us here at the Epoch Times by one of our trusted sources inside of China. Now, of course, this is one of our internal sources, and as you can imagine, they need to remain anonymous. Now, this document described China's ambition to dominate what it calls full-dimensional warfare. What does that mean? Well, what they're referring to is their desire to control 5 different areas of warfare. They basically want to control the sea, land, air, space, as well as the electromagnetic spectrum where military equipment communicates. And they're doing this by developing advanced military drones. This document detailed the regime's plan to design several small types of long-range military drones and establish a factory to produce 1,000 of these drones per year. The document also stated that there would be about a $20 million investment to build the firm that would produce these drones. Now keep something in mind. This document only came to us recently, but this document itself is actually from about 3 years ago. It's from June of 2017. And so in this document, it says that these drones would begin production by the end of 2018. The document reads, "Implementation of the program will arm our national defense with the latest combat power in future vertical warfare and make it capable to contend with the U.S. military weapons, giving it marked military significance." It goes on to say, "In future warfare, seizing more information resources while controlling and restricting other nations' information will be a key component for competing with nations during peaceful periods and an important combat strategy in times of war." Now, besides the concern over a potential war or a potential kinetic war, the other thing that I wanted to discuss in relation to China is the fact that right now, the Chinese Communist Party is spreading propaganda and trying to make it seem like the virus came from either Europe or from America. But take a look at this. This is the culmination of literally months of research into the origin of this global pandemic that we here at the Epoch Times put together. It is a chronological timeline. And by the way, everything here is properly sourced and everything is based on publicly available data. And here's what it shows. This early period here is last winter, and it is all inside of China. This is when mostly the virus is spreading in Wuhan and the Chinese Communist Party is covering it up, spreading propaganda, punishing whistleblowers, and basically downplaying the crisis. But look at what happens right here starting in January. The virus began to spread like wildfire around the globe. Every single dot here represents a different country. And specifically, it shows the earliest date that a person who was confirmed to have the virus arrived inside of that country's borders. For example, in Sweden, a woman came back from Wuhan on January the 23rd and later became the first case in that country. Here in Canada, the first 2 cases are a couple who came back from Wuhan on January the 22nd. And so on, it goes on. We went country by country. And look at this bottom part here. Wuhan was not locked down until January 23rd. But look, by that point, 5 million people had already left Wuhan and they had already spread the virus to many other countries. So why does this all matter? Well, here's the crazy part. Our underground sources inside of China are telling us that the same thing is happening right now in China that happened last year. Today, in January of 2021, there are giant mega cities that are going under lockdown once again. And yet you probably haven't heard about it because the Chinese Communist Party is once again covering it up. But take a look. Hebei province, which has 38 million people, told its residents to isolate at home. And 6 other provinces have entered what they are calling wartime mode after COVID outbreaks there. But the Chinese communists are covering it up, and the media in the West, the legacy media that we have here in the Occident, largely does not report it. However, we here at the Epoch Times can, because over the years we have developed deep underground sources inside of China which allow us to present this information to you. We present you what really is happening in that country. And so if you'd like to read more about either these drones that are being developed by the Chinese military, or about the timeline of this virus's spread, or about these mega cities in China that are going under lockdown right now, all of those links will be in the description box below this video for you to check out. And lastly, as I mentioned before, on the very same day that Joe Biden was sworn into office, our channel, Facts Matter, was demonetized by YouTube. We can now no longer run pre-roll, mid-roll, or post-roll ads on our videos. We also can no longer have a super chat feature in the chat. Basically, they took away our ability to monetize this program. However, if you would like to support honest journalism, if you would like to have access to a source of news that questions the established narratives, that digs into the facts, and that reports everything openly, honestly, and transparently, then I would recommend that you subscribe to the Epoch Times. I'll put a link in the description box below this video. It only costs a few dollars a month, but in return, you will get access to all of our reports, which, by the way, with all of this censorship happening right now across all platforms, in my opinion, it's super critical to have access to uncensored information. And specifically, I want to mention a bit more about our China coverage. The Chinese Communist Party is, by my best estimate, the biggest threat to America, whether it's militarily, ideologically, economically, pretty much in all areas across the board. But generally, the media outlets in this country, in America, do not report accurately on the communist regime. And it's for various reasons. Some are afraid to get their visas revoked, some have economic interests, some have just literally been duped by the Communist Party's talking points, and so on. However, we here at the Epoch Times, we expose communism in all of its forms, especially the Chinese Communist Party. In fact, 20 years ago, our staff of reporters and editors who were actually inside of China were arrested, they were jailed, and some of them were even tortured for reporting the truth. And this literally forced us to develop a system as well as an underground network of sources for getting real news out of that country, for getting real news out of China. And amidst everything that is happening right now, whether it's the pandemic, the lies surrounding the pandemic, the saber rattling of the Chinese Communist Party, the militarization, the cyber warfare, the economic theft, and so on, our team is able to bring you the real situation. Basically, things that we as Americans need to know, we report. So again, I'll throw the link to subscribe to the Epoch Times in the description box below this video, and I hope you check it out. Now lastly, if you haven't already, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe to this YouTube channel to get honest news delivered directly into your YouTube feed while you still can. And until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Stay informed and stay free.